Yeah. All right. Hello, everyone. Uh, Welcome to the career planning session. I hope I'm audible, visible, everything is working fine. All right. So Sumit is adding the participants. So till Sumit is adding the participants, just let me brief you as how we are going to go off. Uh, I am going to be the moderator for the session, but we are going to have all the faculty who have done a lot of hard work in discussing with their friends, troubling their friends, looking at the internet, searching the brochures to find relevant information for all the exams, fellowships, everything that you can give that we are going to share in this session. There's a chat box that is going to be visible to all of us. You can type anything in the chat box and we will respond to it instantaneously. Otherwise, in case you wish that you want to convey your query by directly asking us, speaking to us, feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask. You can even unmute and ask. It's an interactive session. Fine. So most of you are in. So I'll just quickly start with the briefing. So till other people are joining us, hello to everyone. And as it always happens in the field of orthopedics, PG is first. So I'll first brief the postgraduates who are there with us as to what is our recommendation after a collective meeting, that what would be a good idea to prepare the subject while you are a postgraduate. Okay, so PGs, please, I'm just sharing with you the study material that's recommended from our side. Here, how we have been able to divide orthopedics. You will need to read a textbook, a book to learn the instrumentation, a book to learn the examination, a book to need the learn the surgical skills. And of course, you'll need to read some exam oriented material as you reach near your exam. And sometimes, you have always those good candidates who are a little ahead of others. So they need that extra feed up, top up material in the end. Ki, sir, mujhe dusre se zyada score karna hai, so tell me something extra. So regarding the textbook, you will need to read for trauma and you will need to read for rest of cold orthopedics. Here, these all textbooks we feel are good if you wish to read orthopedics. This is a textbook written by me and Jitesh. This is available on Target Ortho also as an e-copy for the subscribers within the subscription price. But I would really recommend this textbook. We actually wrote it for the undergraduates, but trust me, a number of postgraduates have picked it up. Very illustrative, very easy. And yes, I must tell you what I mean by a textbook. कि इसमें क्या material होना चाहिए? Like if I ask you, enumerate all the X-ray signs of SCFE, you should be able to enumerate all the 6-7 X-ray signs in one go. That is what a textbook would have. If I just ask you that what are the all types of osteotomies in DDH, so you should know the principle of all osteotomy, which age, what is the principle, what is the rotating joint, and it should be enumerated in 1 to 10 line wise. So that is what role a textbook plays. So these books generally have this information. I would seriously recommend this one for you. You would love it. Yet regarding trauma part, trauma is generally not a part of your exam, but this is for your personal improvement. And in trauma, we actually encourage that you should be going with Rockwood, but sometimes it becomes too much. You cannot read whole of it. So Koval is a very good bypass. At least Koval, you should be absolutely thorough. But try to top up with Rockwood in important areas like fractures around the hip, neck, femur, very important. So try that you cover at least these kind of things from Rockwood, supracondylar humerus, the important part. Okay. Uh, but please just make sure that you don't miss on this Koval. It's just a synopsis of Rockwood only. And yes, in fundamental of orthopedics, I've almost covered 90% of the Koval as well. So if you're going with this textbook, you will half be done with the trauma part. In instrumentation, either Anand Thakur or Eo Manuel, both are very good books. Here, examination, I'm not going to give you any choice. This is a unanimous choice by all of us, Bruce Reader. It's generally available as a PDF that circulates in the groups. You can let us know, we'll send you the PDF. A very, very nice book for your examination part. This should be the first read and then any other. In the surgical aspects, surgical approaches, Campbell will do. You can have a look at the images in Hoppenfield. That should be enough. And for all the surgeries, Campbell is just the master book. The latest edition of Campbell has been substantially improved. Please go with the latest edition, 13th or 14th. Okay. And Campbell is just sufficient, at least at the undergraduate level. You won't be able to read whole of Campbell. Okay. when you are a PG. But I would still recommend that at least try reading all the important areas from Campbell. When you go to that final year, you need that exam oriented material. Version is a very popular book, but you can also pick up some local notes. Calicut notes, someone posted on our group. Very nice, I found them. You can also pick up those Davangiri notes, all those things. But they should be top up towards the exam in the end, not the dependable ones. And yes, if you have time still left, pediatric orthopedics very nicely given in Tagzian. Spine, some people say Rothman, becomes too much for a postgraduate, more for after PG reading. But if you have time, you can go with that. So this is a very, very simple synopsis I've been able to make. Preferably start with this material in the first 1.5 year. And once you're into that second year, more focus should be covering up this material, Campbell, basically picked up little towards the end of the first year, because if you straight away begin with Campbell, things would go over your head. So first take up textbook, Rockwood, trauma part, instrumentation. Once you're done with that, simultaneous start with examination part and reading Campbell. So that is what my advice to you is. And the latest edition of Campbell, again, no bargain for it. Very nice, very much targeted to the Indian audience. That is what I would say. So that's all for the PGs. And PGs preparing for MS exam must give the DNB exam. That is my advice to them. Because when you've done the MS, you have already done like 90% of the homework. Just extend that little extra, and after that 6 months, also appear for the DNB exam. Having an extra degree just gives you the extra benefit in that tough cutthroat competition that you feel after the PG. Fine. And yes, the more important part now, what to do after PG, because postgraduate is just putting your foot into the mud in orthopedics. There is so much of congestion that just as a postgraduate, you are too young to call yourself a surgeon. All right. So you nowadays it's mandatory that you add in something extra after your PG, so that you can actually start a practice in a good way. So what all options do we have after PG? That is something now I'd like to brief you. So I'm of course going to talk of the FMD exam that is just about to come 11th of October. I'm going to also tell you a little about the MCH options that you now have in orthopedics. Then of course we'll be talking of some fellowship courses, the diploma CCOT exam, is it worth or not? And of course the FRC or CS Ortho, that is also now becoming popular because now the whole exam is being managed in India only. So we'll brief you on everything. But these are not degrees, these are just more or less exams. These are degrees. So I'll first pattern of FNB and MCH first. Okay. Fellowship of National Board FNB exam. This is a post MS or DNB exam. So this becomes your minimum requirement. The forms are to be filled online. For this year's FNB, September 1 forms were introduced, 17th is the last date. This will be a computer-based test. So when I say it's a computer-based test, guys, please understand that it becomes essential for you to make sure that you attend the trial. The National Board has planned a trial on 5th of October. Please make sure you attend the trial, because trust me, half of the tension in the exam is using that computer and making sure that things work well. So reach in time. The exam is at 11 a.m. You're supposed to reach at 9. Trust me, you will find the 2 hours less when it's a computer-based exam. Okay, so make sure you reach in time. You're going to spend around 4,500 rupees for the exam, but likely you're going to avoid the travel cost this time, because this time almost 17 centers have been shortlisted. To avoid that hassle, almost every capital city in state, it's hosting a center. Okay. FNB is actually a 2-year course. And then there's an exit exam also, theory and practical at the end of FNB. And finally, you get a degree, a certificate from National Board. And this degree is recognized by NCI by the Gazette notification of 2016, 10th August 2016. Government of India took out a Gazette notification which stated that FNB is a recognized super specialty in the country. If done after January 2014, that was the guideline. But they specifically mentioned it clearly that the teaching experience will not be counted. Now, what has been my experience? When I went for the UPSC interview, where I finally made it, I made it on my SRship experience. That was counted. FNB teaching experience, they did not count, although I got the FNB certificate from my university regarding teaching, Vardhaman Mahavir University, which is a medical college. When I went for the AIIMS interview, they counted my teaching experience of FNB. So Autonomous Institute can count, UPSC will not count the teaching experience. But yes, MCI recognition means you can add it to your Delhi, like I'm registered in Delhi Medical Council, so you can add it to your medical council certificate. So if you look at my medical council certificate, it has FNB added onto it as a super specialty degree. Okay, so MBBS comes in first tier, then I have the MS added to it, DNB added to it, and then I have the FNB additionally added onto it. Okay, another very good advantage I feel, and yes, the advantage of adding FNB, this is specifically for those people who are going to work outside India, like you want to go to Dubai, your tier will go up because they give value a lot to your medical council certificate. So your tier improves, especially for those who want to practice outside India. And when you apply for fellowships, your value improves because when they see your medical council certificate, they think that you are a little more learned ones than the other ones. Okay, a very good stipend you generally get in FNB. This is the minimum requirement, 45,000 written in the prospectus. But most of the places would pay you somewhere between 45 to 90. So I feel that, where you have no jobs, this is a very, very nice option. At least you get a good stipend and you get training at a good institute. FNB is there in trauma, arthroplasty, spine and sports medicine, then hand and microvascular surgery. So 4 branches, you have FNB. Now, these are the feeder branches that can give the particular exam. Like FNB trauma can be given by a surgeon, neurosurgeon, orthopedic surgeon, anesthetist. Orthopedic surgeon would do trauma, he would get the surgical part. Okay. But if an anesthetist would do FNB trauma, he will be posted mainly in the ICU. FNB trauma is only there where there are like trauma centers. So you join an FNB, you are more targeted into your interested field, the field that is of your interest. Okay. Orthopedic surgeon has to also to do that ICU posting like an anesthetist in FNB trauma, but that is cut short like anything. So the course basically gets structured as per the field from where you enter the course. Okay. But yes, knowing these feeder specialties is especially important in understanding the paper. Now, FNB paper is a 100 questions paper, MCQ paper, 40 plus 60 questions. They are divided into part A and part B. Part A is relatively an easy part, just spans over 45 minutes. Part B has challenging questions, tough questions, spans for around 60 minutes. So it's a 105-minute exam. Now in part A, you will have 40 MCQs from all the feeder specialties. Okay. Like if you are giving, I'll just take the example of the spine and sports medicine area. So spine and sports medicine can be given by neurosurgeon and orthopedic surgeon. So part A will be all orthopedics here. If you so you fill your field, when you fill your degree, when you fill the exam. So if you're orthopedic surgeon, part A will be all of orthopedics and part B will be spine plus sports medicine. So that will be the scenario. If you have not clubbed sports medicine with spine when you fill the form, then part B will be only spine. Here I really wonder, where does this neurosurgery come in? See, I have not been able to meet a neurosurgeon who has given this exam. So I haven't been able to find any neurosurgery MCQs in the recall either. There were no neurosurgery MCQs. So actually only orthopedic MCQs come. So I think that neurosurgery MCQs go to that person who clicks his degree as neurosurgery, that I've done neurosurgery and now I am applying for it. That is what I have been actually able to understand. I hope this thing is clear to you guys. So you can just neglect this area. You're not going to get neurosurgery questions. If at all there will be questions from polytrauma. But I think as an orthopedic surgeon, you need to know. So you do get some questions from chest injuries, flail chest, rib fractures. You do get some questions from that abdominal injuries. Fast के बारे में question आ जाता है. And at times Glasgow comas के लिए सब पूछ लेते हैं. But is it really neurosurgery? I doubt. I think it's only orthopedics that you actually get. But part A will be whole of orthopedics. Will be simple questions, mostly single liners. Part B will be clinical questions, image based questions. Images also come in the exam. They have started with images just from the previous year, and with a computer based exam, expect more of images.